Imagine a leader who seizes power not through noble promises or moral persuasion, but through calculated manipulation, fear, and strategic ruthlessness. Now imagine that same leader being praised, not condemned, as wise, pragmatic, and even necessary. Sounds familiar? It should. From ancient empires to modern democracies, history has repeatedly shown us that the most successful political figures are rarely saints. They are realists, strategists. Sometimes they are even Machiavellian. But what does it really mean to be Machiavellian? Is it just a euphemism for being cunning and ruthless? Or is it something more, perhaps a radical yet honest take on power, leadership, and the ever-complex dance between ends and means? Welcome to the Unfolding Journey, your digital companion in exploring ideas that shaped our past, define our present, and influence our future. On this channel, we don't just skim the surface. We dive deep into philosophy, politics, history, and the hidden dynamics that drive human action. If you're curious, reflective, and unafraid to question conventional wisdom, you're in the right place. So, let's begin our journey into the political calculus of Niccolò Machiavelli, a man whose name became a synonym for power without conscience, but who might just be one of the most misunderstood thinkers in history. Niccolò Machiavelli was a diplomat, philosopher, and political theorist in Renaissance Florence. Born in 1469, he lived during a time of intense political instability. Italy was a patchwork of city-states constantly at war, undermined by foreign invasions, and riddled with betrayals and shifting alliances. In this context of chaos and realpolitik, Machiavelli wrote The Prince, arguably one of the most influential and controversial books ever written on power. Unlike the idealist philosophies of Plato or the Christian virtues promoted by Augustine, Machiavelli offered something radically different, a guide to acquiring and maintaining political power that prioritized effectiveness over morality. He did not ask, what should a ruler do to be good? He asked, what must a ruler do to remain in power? One of the most infamous ideas attributed to Machiavelli is the notion that the ends justify the means. While he never wrote those exact words, the idea permeates The Prince. Let's unpack this. For Machiavelli, politics was not the realm of ideals but of outcomes. A ruler's ultimate responsibility was to preserve the state, by any means necessary. If deception, coercion, or even violence were required to maintain stability, then so be it. The security of the state, the survival of its institutions, and the obedience of its people were the ends that justified harsh or immoral means. This was a shocking proposition, especially in an era steeped in Christian morality. Machiavelli was saying that a good ruler might have to do bad things. Not because they are evil but because the world is. Two key concepts are central to understanding Machiavelli's political calculus: Virtù and Fortuna. Virtù doesn't mean virtue in the Christian sense. It refers instead to a ruler's boldness, cunning, decisiveness, and adaptability. Think of it as a kind of strategic strength, a capacity to shape one's destiny. Fortuna, by contrast, is fate, those unpredictable forces beyond our control. Is luck, chance, and the chaos of life. According to Machiavelli, a successful leader uses Virtù to master Fortuna. Power doesn't simply fall into your lap. You must seize it, manage it, and defend it, sometimes ruthlessly. For him, weakness, hesitation, or idealism in a volatile world is not virtuous. It is dangerous. So, in Machiavelli's view, a leader must be like a lion and a fox, powerful enough to defend, clever enough to deceive. It's tempting to cast Machiavelli as a villain. After all, his work seems to strip politics of all morality. But to stop there would be a mistake. Machiavelli wasn't advocating tyranny for its own sake. He wasn't cheering for cruelty. He was describing political life as it really is, not as we wish it to be. In his words, a man who wishes to make a profession of goodness in everything must necessarily come to grief among so many who are not good. In other words, idealistic leaders who refuse to acknowledge the darker side of politics often become victims of it. For Machiavelli, good intentions are not enough. A ruler must deal with the world as it is. To quote him again, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." That's not a recommendation for tyranny, it's a survival tip for rulers living in brutal times. Whether or not we agree with Machiavelli, his ideas have shaped political thought for centuries. His influence can be seen in the strategies of leaders from Napoleon to Bismarck, from Churchill to Kissinger. In modern politics, the tension between means and ends is everywhere. Should governments use covert surveillance to prevent terrorism? Is it acceptable to lie or mislead the public during wartime? Do leaders sometimes need to abandon principle for pragmatism? These are Machiavellian questions, and they are not easy. Some leaders who've been labeled Machiavellian have led their nations through war, depression, and existential threat, often by making difficult, even morally questionable choices. Others have abused the same principles for personal gain, becoming tyrants in the process. Machiavelli doesn't tell us who to admire. He just gives us the tools to understand them. So, does the end justify the means? That depends on what the end is, and who decides. Machiavelli's genius lies not in his moral vision, but in his unsentimental realism. He forces us to confront the fact that politics is not just about what should be done, but what can be done. This can be dangerous. Detached from ethical limits, the Machiavellian mindset can become a blueprint for authoritarianism. History has shown that when rulers prioritize power above all else, the consequences can be devastating. But when used with care and conscience, Machiavelli's insights can also be tools for navigating complexity. They remind us that leadership is not black and white. It is often gray, murky, moral, and full of painful trade-offs. In today's polarized world, where political narratives are often reduced to slogans, Machiavelli's work offers a sobering counterpoint. It asks us to think critically, not just emotionally. It challenges us to examine power, not just who holds it, but how they use it and at what cost. Whether you see him as a cynical manipulator or a clear-eyed realist, Machiavelli's relevance is undeniable. He remains a necessary voice in the conversation about leadership, morality, and the nature of political responsibility. In some ways, we are all Machiavellian now, forced to choose between idealism and pragmatism, between our values and the realities of the world around us. Niccolò Machiavelli didn't give us a perfect moral compass. He gave us a mirror, a brutally honest reflection of political life. He taught us that leadership is not about purity, it's about balance. Not about pleasing everyone but preserving what matters. So the next time you hear a politician praised for integrity or condemned for ruthlessness, remember, the truth might be more complicated than either label suggests. Somewhere in between, the real story begins. Thank you for watching the unfolding journey. If you found this exploration thought-provoking, enlightening, or even unsettling, that's exactly the point. We aim to challenge assumptions, provoke thought, and uncover the hidden layers of history and philosophy that shape our lives today. Don't forget to like this video, share it with fellow thinkers, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. There are many more journeys to take, and we'd love to have you with us on each one. Until next time, stay curious, stay reflective, and keep unfolding.